I just want a different plan B for women because right now, their plan B is like working a retail job or
Right.
being a
Yeah.
parent in a
Yeah.
school or a CNA. And not
Yeah.
that we don't need those roles, but when we talk about the pay wage gap and in the genders,
Hmm.
well, it's because if they're not going to college right after high school, guys who have like just a half of a brain go, oh, I'm going to go drive a 16-wheeler, drive a dump truck, go into construction. They're instantaneously making 2 to 3 times what the counterparts of the women
Hmm.
that are going into the other roles.
Welcome to the Builder Hacks Podcast, your go-to destination for cutting-edge strategies, time-tested systems, and invaluable insights to revolutionize your construction business and elevate your life. Join your hosts, Nate Piper and Keith Meals, seasoned contractors who are not just in the trenches, but are also pioneering the future of the industry through Concord University. In each episode, we dive deep into the minds of the industry's most accomplished building professionals, uncovering their secrets to success and sharing actionable tips to help you thrive. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, our goal is to empower you to build a brighter future for yourself and for America. Tune in, level up, and let's build a better tomorrow together. This is the Builder Hacks Podcast. Build your future, building America.
Well, it's interesting. You brought up a lot of topics that they kind of touch into the core essence of people, right? And kind of like what motivates them and what doesn't motivate. I know for me personally, I've worked with a lot of young men, and one of the reasons why I like working with a lot of young men, and I really try to pull them into this industry and kind of get them out of computers and bar life and things of that nature, just because I started seeing such a big increase in depression, anxiety, suicidal kind of components, and all these things in young guys where they weren't really being able to rise to their fullest potential. And part of that was just them not being comfortable with where they were going in life. And I think women have the same thing. I can't speak for women because that's why you get to be their advocate. But I know for young men, we've been able to like take away the things that make them feel like young men by being able to let them be able to kind of be more creative. The reason that we're really basically in this trade decline and infrastructure decline is because we're not encouraging any of them to go into that field. We're really encouraging them go to college, get a general studies degree, get a computer, sit in a room, do the thing. And a lot of them, just start falling into this point of depression. And I've had some guys that they follow the track, they went to college, they got multiple degrees, they get off into a job and they hate it and they've never done anything. And then all of a sudden they end up in my world. They've never picked up a screwdriver, they've never picked up a circular saw, they've never had a tool, they've never really felt anything. And when I interview them, I've seen them like their eyes are glossed over, they don't have a soul. And then the next thing you know, you put a tool in their hand and all of a sudden they do something with it and now they feel like they're champions, like they've done it, like they've got confidence. And every day it's just a building of confidence, building of confidence, building of confidence. And I think that's missed. I think as a society we've messed up by not encouraging kids to work with their hands, to be creative,
Mm-hmm.
to move into. I remember my sister, she was, I don't know, second, third grade. She went out to the garage and we had all these paints because we'd make yard signs for holidays and just, cut out the wood, stick them outside. But she found these puff paints and she found an old t-shirt. She started making puff paints designs on her t-shirts and then she turned around and sold them. And she loved it and she did that all through high school, and then she got engaged in other kinds of building activities and being able to create these things. But I think it starts with just having arts and crafts, and I think you're right about having a camp. I think you're absolutely 100% correct about having them be in the camps and being engaged, because those are things that last long term and kind of open their eyes up. So I'm encouraged, I'm fascinated by everything you're doing.
I always say that, women love power tools for the same reason men do.
Yeah.
You feel powerful. when
Yeah.
you're using them. They're fun.
Right.
And so once you get past the scared part of, oh my God, what's this thing do? And you learn just a little bit, you're like, oh, watch out, I got a drill in my hand. What are we doing today?
Yeah.
I paid my when I was ripping out my shower in this house, which I will never, ever, ever do again. I mean, like I was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody. I said, there's certain things that you underestimate when somebody gives you a quote for something. And I don't care what it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was actually talking the other day about social media stuff, and I was like, before I knew how much went into content creation,
Yep.
I was like, I'm not paying somebody that much money to do that. All they're doing is making a video. Oh, right. And now I'm like, how much did you? Okay, perfect. Great.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing, like in a lot of construction stuff, right? Homeowners are like, oh yeah, it's not that hard, and I was in that shower. I'm like, I've done tile backsplashes, I've done floors, it'll be fine, right? I'll do the shower.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I did it. I'm never going to do that again. But
Yeah.
when I was, I mean, I didn't have the girls knock out the tile. That was a disaster. But then you got, a bazillion of the screws in all
Yep.
of the backer, and so my oldest had a sleepover one night, and I knew her mom really well. And so I decided that I was like, I'm going to put both these girls, they're not doing anything. They're on their phone. And I was like, hey, how do you guys want to take out screws? I'll pay you 10 cents per screw to take out. And so they're just going to town. They got their safety glasses on, and they each have their drill. And I'm like, push harder, push harder. But I'm trying to get it out. I'm like, push harder, And so they're learning. And I mean, they still talk about it. They
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
that, like that was how they learned. And that's great practice. I think I paid it $30 or something.
That's cheap labor, Jen.
It was cheap labor. It was such cheap labor. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's giving the confidence. And part of it is too, Nate, is just changing the conversation instead of going to high school graduation parties and saying, where are you going to college, saying, what are your plans after high school?
Yeah.
And that comes also down to the mom part, because there is
Absolutely.
a societal pressure
Mhm.
very much of where you're not only are the kids getting asked that, all of the moms
parents
are
are.
getting asked, where's your daughter going to college at? Where's your,
Yeah.
whatever it is. We've got to change that. And I
We have
think
to.
that there's really a window right now. There's a movement. There is less of, there's more open mindedness to alternatives, but not for everybody.
Yeah.
And there's definitely an element of pressure. And the kids feel it a lot. Like, this is what I'm supposed
Mhm.
to do. I
Well,
always have thought, go ahead.
well, I think you're absolutely right. And that part is, we have an education system that is not benefiting our children, and it's not benefiting our future. And we spend so much time creating this narrative for them that they never have an opportunity to think for themselves. They never have an opportunity to kind of dive into it. I was an athlete, and I love playing sports, and I played a bunch of different sports in high school, and then played in college, and wanted to proceed forward into going into professional, but that wasn't really my calling. But that was what everybody wanted to do at that point in time, and that was kind of like my entry level. But that was being forced down. That was what the society was saying. Oh, you want to be successful in life, then you need to be a professional athlete, because they're the ones who make the good money. Then I went off to college, and they're like, okay, you got to get a business degree, and you got to go to the stock market, and you got to go to Wall Street, and you got to go. And I did it, and I hated it. And it's like, okay, I then go and I pick up, back into construction. I'm dealing with all this stuff, fell in love, right? But kids aren't having the opportunity, and they're being told and forced, and they follow the line, and they have to walk that line of going through, okay, this is what expected of me. This is what I'm going to do. And they keep following that, and they never find their passion, and they end up in these realms of corporate America where they're just miserable for 15 to 20 years. And then they get out of corporate America. And they said, wait, I'm alive. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to like be at the coffee maker at 8:30, and I don't have to take my break at 11. I don't, whatever it is. I don't know. I didn't do corporate America long. So But
But I mean, that piece that you're talking about, and I want to put this out to all of our listeners, though, is the fact that I challenge you as parents because this is something that I didn't
yeah,
do until I realized that Paige was for like we'd had all the same conversations that most parents have with their kids, though, and we had the conversation with Paige is you're going to go to college, you're going to go ahead and do, and she was literally going to go ahead and be either anesthesiologist or radiologist. I always forget which one it was. So, but she was going to do that, which is obviously as a 7 to 10 year track to be able to get out into the real world and do things. And this whole time, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a business. So I'm in construction, and I'm never having that conversation until she got to her senior year. So in the fall of her senior year, I looked at Alice, so my wife, and I'm like, the thing, and that's Paige's mom. So I'm like, the thing is, we've never had this conversation. It's always been, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. And I'm like, that may not be the thing that she wants to do. And I never want to see her do something she's forced to do. I mean, there's always things that we have to do in our lives, but I don't want to be her to be forced that you've got to go to college unless that's the decision she wants to make. And we had that conversation, and it was almost like you could see the weight being lifted off of her. So whenever you had that conversation, that she's like, there are other options. And she's been to, I mean, Nate and I go, there's an event that Nate and I go to every year and stuff like that. She's been to that event with us multiple times. She's been to the event where I met you at, Jen. She's been to those events multiple times for pieces and parts. Of course, she's not going to sit there through the whole thing. She just doesn't want to. She hears it from me and she doesn't want to listen to me about it. So she doesn't want to listen to anybody else about it. And by going ahead and giving her that opportunity, it did change things. And especially after, I mean, she graduated in 2020. So she was, during that time, unfortunately, everything was happening with COVID. So she didn't have a normal senior year for that last half of the year. And I don't think she would have been ready to go to school at that point or do that virtually. And she definitely wouldn't have excelled on the virtual side of things. And now she's been in construction for 4 years, whereas, people who graduated with her are 3 years into their degree. So is what it comes down to, and whether they'll come out with anything that they like and how many of them. You also look at the other part of it because they say there are so many people who go to college now that the dropout rate from whenever they enroll as freshmen to whenever they graduate as seniors is almost 50% of the people drop out of college with a huge amount of debt by the time they do that for a lot of them. And that's the pieces. Paige has been making money. Paige is out on her own now. Her and her boyfriend live together. She's got her own first car that she's paid for by herself without any financing help from us. So she's gone ahead and building the life that she wants to go ahead and build. And it was the right choice for her, is what it came
Yeah.
down to. And I think that that's the part I put out to the parents is have that conversation and let your children realize there's other opportunities other than what they're being fed while they're at school, or what they're, like you said, their friends are talking about going to school,
Yeah.
or maybe that they're hearing from their parents' friends and always asking that question, where are you going to college? It doesn't have to be that route. It could be construction. It could be being an entrepreneur. So there's 1,000 different things that are out there. And I think that's part of where the challenge comes in now is we don't let them explore it and figure it out for themselves.
Right. And I always say you can always go back to
Mhm.
college. People say, well, you need to go and, grow up. Well, let me tell you, if you're not still living with your mom and dad when you're
Yep.
19 and you're on your own paying your own bills, you're going to grow up too,
Right.
like real fast. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, part of it is we're enabling our
Right.
children, I think, way too much, but it is so interesting. The people that I had a wonderful woman who, when I was an undergrad, is a traditional student. She was 45 going back for her bachelor's degree and was so knowledgeable, started a business right when she got done, super successful. I've interviewed probably 600 to 700 law school students in my career,
Mhm.
to be first year associates or summer associates. And the ones that had 5 or 10 years of corporate experience before they went back to law school were always like head and shoulders above everybody else. And so, you know, I just want a different plan B for women because right now, their plan B is like working a retail job or
Right.
being a
yeah,
para in a
yeah,
school or a CNA. And not
yeah.
that we don't need those roles, but when we talk about the pay wage gap and in the genders,
Mhm.
well, it's because if they're not going to college right after high school, guys who have like just a half of a brain go, oh, I'm going to go drive a 16-wheeler, drive a dump truck, go into
Mhm.
construction. They're instantaneously making 2 to 3 times what the counterparts of the women
Mhm.
that are going into the other roles are. And it's like, it's not because they're men and women, it's because they're doing two different jobs. And
Right.
we're just not even providing those as options.
Yeah.
So go back to college later, but do something to
Well,
figure out yourself first.
I personally believe, and I went to college. Um, it didn't benefit me. It taught me some other life skills, right? It taught me how to like, interact with others, and it taught me some writing abilities, and it taught me, uh, more or less how to engage with other people. But I didn't use any of the stuff that I learned in college to become an entrepreneur. I didn't learn any of that stuff to actually make money. Like when we start looking at our education system, and I think that's kind of what we're talking about right now, is that when we look at our education system, we look like it has to be this way, right? Like women have this role, men have this role. This is the path that you have to do. I, from my stance, I don't care if you're male or female. I want you just to be able to do the function, right? I like it. It does not matter to me. I don't care. What I care about is that A, we're getting the job done. We're doing what we say that we're going to do. B, we're getting better at it. And C, we're just following the path to greatness to be able to get on to the end. I don't care if I was in a war zone. I wouldn't care if it was a man or a woman right next to me, as long as you're firing your bullets in the same direction that I'm firing, right? I don't care. Like I think that's part of the problem that we have, is that we have this divide that men are supposed to do one thing and women are supposed to do the other. No, we're all kind of equal in our abilities to do things. Let's just do them, right? The second part of this educational problem that I have is that when are we allowing people to actually join the workforce? Because when I was a kid, I was joining the workforce at like 10, right? I had a newspaper route. I, sold candy in school. I was mowing lawns. I was painting fences. Like I joined early, and now I had jobs in high school. I had jobs in college. I was engaged with other people. I was testing things out. What do I like? What do I not like? All these things. But now I'm interviewing guys that have multiple degrees who've never had a job in their entire life. What is the problem with that? Like, you've never punched the clock, you've never showed up, you've never done anything. Like, this is a problem. Like, they've been baby, they've been colder, they've had cars, they've had their own apartment, they've had all this, but they've never worked a job. So I'm like, okay, so how did you pay for this? Oh, my parents paid for it. That's a problem. If we're not teaching children how to be independent, then what are we doing once they get through all this education? And I really believe universities and colleges should be paying the most income tax into the government than we should be as individuals, because they're basically taking our money, not educating the kids, and then keeping all the capital. So, but that's my own toot and horn. But
Really
And they jumped up on
interesting.
a soapbox.
yeah, but I do think that that's part of the problem that we have with education. It's like, what are we doing here? How are we going to get them engaged? Because if we're getting children, because in the construction world, your body is going to start to fail where you can't do it consistently. And what I found is somewhere around that age of 35, you cannot be out there doing the same thing over and over and over, right? You have to elevate into management around the age of 35. But you've got between the ages of 15 to 35, that's 20 years of physical education that you could be earning money. And guys that skip college and they go straight into the trades, somewhere around year two, they're making between 75 and $125,000 a year
Yep. With no debt on
with
the
no
job
debt.
training.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
they've got cars, they've got houses, they're being established in life. We're talking about like, this is where I'm going to get political for half a second, which I don't really like to, but I feel like we're in that conversation, so we'll have the deal. We've got housing that's rising. We've got homeowners that can't pay to be inside of homes, right? Because they can't save enough money to get there. Mostly because they have college debt that's so outrageous that they won't even be able to pay it off in 25 years. And so how are they able to save money to move into having a starter home if they can't even get through the education that didn't teach them how to pay taxes or make investments or manage their own capital, or do any of those things personally, right? We're just talking about a job. And so, but now we're now telling them, oh, you have to have home ownership. Well, how is that even possible? I don't know. So,
No, you're right. I mean, we need to stop complaining about all of the student debt that's out there and stop accruing it in the first place. And I'm not anti-higher education. I have a lot of it and we need it, but you need to go with a plan. You
Right.
don't need it for everything. And it just needs,
mhm,
we just need to change the defunct of, well, this is what you're doing after high school, right? It needs to be
mhm,
more thoughtful. One of the things that I would like to someday create, and I don't think it would be that hard to do. I just need to find the right person to help with this part, but I think that we can create an assessment that would help. I mean, I did struggle with this, right? Like there's a bazillion. I've taken every single one of them, personality assessments out there. Every one of them. I can tell you exactly, Enneagram 7 through and through, wing of one, right?
yeah, yeah,
ENTJ,
yeah,
I got them all. But there's none of them that will tell you what you think you might want to do when you get done with high
Right.
school. And
mhm,
I've got, again, my girls right now, they're like, what career are you thinking of? Are you kidding me? They're 12 and 14. They're not
Right.
thinking about a
yeah,
career yet. But what I can tell you as a parent is that my oldest daughter loves building Legos. She absolutely loves it. She draws inside lines. She likes straight angles, like everything about her. And I'm like, she's a builder. She is
mhm,
100%. If she were going to go into higher education, I would steer her into architecture or engineering.
Right.
If she's going another direction, I know where she fits in the trade space, right? And
mhm,
would do very well. And so it's like if you gave me a room full of kids, I want to know who likes Legos. And I can come up with some jobs that you're going to probably
Right.
like. I want to know my painters and who likes to paint in the lines and who likes to paint all over the paper.
yeah,
Because we're going to talk about faux finishing and you can make a
Right.
fortune and
yeah,
you're
Right.
going to never have to paint in a line in your life. But my people who have to have straight lines, well, perfect. This is what you're doing over here. We're
yeah.
going to
I
do
could be the
trim.
cut in.
And so, like, how do we create an assessment to help go back to when you were children, before the world told you what you had to do?
Mhm,
And you just got to play. What did
yeah,
you like to do? I mean, they always talked about like some of the best airline pilots in the world are those people that were playing Nintendo, right?
yeah,
Because that's how you operated it. And that industry was like, we can't wait for the people who
Right.
were playing with joysticks and
Yeah,
game
it's
controllers.
direct skill crossover is what it comes down to.
Totally. So, like, let's not make this more complicated than what it needs to be.
Right.
But how do we go back to who they were when they were kids, before they had anxiety and depression from social media and everybody said this is what you have to go do?
Hmm.
I
And
don't.
there's so many different pieces that go into that because it really does come down to how kids are being raised, how what opportunities parents are giving them when they're young. And I think I hate to say it, but I've seen so many parents who the iPad and video games are what they give them to babysit, basically. So whether it's watching videos or playing video games, so I'm doing those kinds of things. And I think that goes ahead and robs the children of the opportunity to explore things like playing with Legos. So playing with Lincoln Logs, painting, doing arts and crafts. So all the different things that and I can't say, I mean, it's the parents' fault, but at the same time, I know the parents are doing the best they can with what they've got at this time, and they're so a lot of them so overworked that literally they just give them something so that they can have a moment of peace or the ability to do something else that is just as important at that time. So that's part of what the problem with society is right now is how do we go ahead and create those spaces for the kids to even begin to explore it and then create the awareness for the parents to be able to help them guide the kids towards things that might work out more effectively based on the things that they've been interested in and things that they've shown interest in to that point. And it becomes a full re-education. So
You know,
of both ends.
honestly, preschool teachers might be the very best
Could
group
be.
to watch
Right.
mhm,
because I'm a big believer there's nature versus nurture, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I am a huge believer in Gallup strengths because
Mhm.
those they I am sort of like this person. I just want everybody to be happy.
yeah,
Mhm.
Because, Gallup says that if you are doing something that you are naturally successful at, you will therefore be happy and therefore successful.
Right.
And I have seen it over and over and over again. And it is, you have to give people the opportunity to do those things that they're naturally good at. And I love the Clifton Strengths Finder. And it is going to tell you what you're naturally good at. But
Mm.
if you don't have a coach and someone who can go back to, a really
Right.
great parent who can say, going back to what did they like to do when they were 3, and how do you take what they're now really good at
Yeah.
with what they naturally loved to do and gravitate, and figure out what that career looks like for them. How do you get there? Right? I don't know. It's really
Well,
fascinating.
And
And again, with my kids right now being 12 and 14, this is on my mind a lot right now.
right.
well, it's kind of one of those things. It's like I I came from a entrepreneurial background. My mother was a serial entrepreneur, but she always just pushed us out there. But the one thing that she did that I am eternally grateful for was that she exposed us to so many different qualities of life and so many different um, interactions with different people, with different entertainment, with different foods, with different places. Like our mission wasn't to do the same thing over and over again, but her mission was to like, okay, let me expose you to this world. Now let me expose you to this world. Now let me expose you to food over here versus food over here. Let me expose you to what this entertainment, like whether it was the ballet or we went to Disney or we went to, watch a waterfall park. It was, let's do all these different experiences. And one of the things that we would do in the car would be, we'd talk about, do we like it? Do we not like it? Why do we like it? Why do we not like it? So that we could figure out what we like. I don't think that conversation is being had with parents and children. I try to have that conversation with my kids, but universally, I don't think that conversation is being had. And I think we get them into pre pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, and we say, okay, now you're in the structured learning program.
Yeah.
And I'm almost like, well, I've got an 8-year-old, and he is he's an ingenious person trying to figure things out, and he is so in tune with, oh, okay, that person did this person did that, and he loves numbers, and I already know that he's going to be somewhere in the math realm of trying to figure things out, right? And I'm going to try to pull him into the construction world so he can help understand how to like run an
Run all your data and
estimate
analytics.
and do all the back end numbers and all the
Yeah.
rest. I'm like, okay, I got you. You got 10 more years. You're coming into work. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm an old parent now, and I got a lot of young kids. I'm the oldest dad in the parent room, and a lot of these guys they don't have a clue of how to parent. Number one, there's no parenting classes. There's no exposure to those things, and we're not giving them opportunities. But I think it'd be amazing if we had an area where they just put a bunch of toys in a room and said, okay, you can play with anything all day long for the next month, and let's see what they gravitate towards, right? I think that's what is that education process? The
Montessori.
Montessori school. Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great idea to be able to kind of like start reverting back to some of those, or have those kids, because they really get to dive into what is their passion and what do they like. I know over in Europe, they have their not ASVAB test, but they have a test similar to that where they make determinations early on. I think it's sixth, seventh grade, where they say, okay, you're going to go to university and learn this, and you're going to go this way, and you're going to go that, and you're going to be a laborer out in the field that just takes orders. I don't think that we need to have something like that, but I think we do need to have a creative outlet where they can explore their ideas and explore their talents and try to figure out where they thrive, instead of saying, okay, we don't care about your talents, we just want you to do X, Y, and Z. So
It's definitely where that challenge comes in, because I don't think the majority of schools do that, because it's not what school's designed for. So the school is literally designed to create a good employee. So is what school's designed for. That's all it's there for. So, and that's it goes ahead and holds kids back. Because I mean, I even think about, like, Jen, you were talking about the tests and things like that, and it's funny because whenever I take those tests, so especially certain of them, you can go ahead and shift the results however you want to shift the results, and then it becomes the piece of, all right, what have I been programmed that what I should be doing as opposed to who I actually am, and do I answer that way, or do I answer, honestly, how I feel about things? And I think that's where the challenge comes in, is when you start doing it too late, you've already started to get that compliance factor coming in to, this is what people expect of me. This is what society expects of me. So this is what I've got to do. And that's, it's one of the bigger challenges is how do you get away from that? How do you get kids back to that point where they're able to be creative, to be able to explore, to be able to find what actually resonates with them? And Montessori is one way to do that. So it's like, how else do you get that out to everybody else? Because a lot of times, I mean, at least Montessori here in Florida, so I mean, that's private school is what that comes down to. So that's money that's coming out of parents' pockets, which means that you've got a certain number of parents that can do that. So, and a certain number of parents that unfortunately don't have the opportunity or the ability to make that happen. It's like, how do we go ahead and change those pieces? I mean, those are huge questions to be able to be, more effective for society overall. And that's literally what we're talking about here. So it's how do we get to that point? What gets created, what changes need to be made, or at least how do we start exploring it? And even if it is as the people get older, so we give them that opportunity, like Jen's doing with hammers and flip flops. So people getting that opportunity to go ahead and do those things on their own like that. Because, like, I mean, like Nate, you said you grew up doing those type. You did those projects. You did those things with your, with your dad and with your family about going ahead and doing some construction type things. Like I never did any of that. I was one of those people that you guys are talking about. Whenever you come in, has zero skills because I didn't learn that. I grew up in a single parent household. My mom didn't. I mean, my mom could do basic things, so but she didn't really ever involve us in that, and I didn't have anyone in our life who went through that. And I even had those apprehensions whenever I went to work for the first construction company. I mean, I'd literally do zero. So whenever I started working, and Nate and I always joke about, it's like the first day, what are you doing? You're cleaning up the job site. That's all you do all day long. You just clean up the job site and bring materials, and clean up the job site and bring materials. And that's what I did literally for like the first month and a half. So that I was there as I was learning, because I didn't even know how to read it. I mean, I know how to read a ruler because we actually had rulers in school at that point. So that part I already knew, but for anything else, I had zero skills. And getting kids that don't have those skills or that ability comfortable with being uncomfortable and exploring the new thing is always where the challenge is getting them to step forward to that. I mean, same challenge like Jen was talking about for women is that they feel they need to know so much more than what men will a lot of times to be able to take that step forward. How do we encourage that piece? So, and get them out there doing more. I mean, hammers and flip flops is one of those ways. And Nate, on our side, it's like, how do we go ahead and bring that into Concord University to bring in people who wouldn't ever take that step forward and realize that, hey, I will go ahead and I'll see how this works out. And that's part of why we have that set up that way is they can come in and they start one track and maybe that track isn't the thing. But maybe they don't want to do drywall once they get in there. Maybe like Jen, so I'll hire someone else to go and do my finishing and my sanding, so my texturing. But and they get into something else that maybe they like painting, maybe they like being an electrician, maybe like going and being the plumber, whatever the case may be. Those I think are some of the big questions. So for us is how do we go ahead and create that and encourage that in our own local areas and then even bigger as we go along.
Yeah, big questions for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's something that, this is where whenever, if you're listening to this, let us know if you've got thoughts on this. I would love to hear what everyone else, any of our listeners, what they're thinking, what their fears are about it. I mean, Jen's expressed some of the ones that she knows from the ladies that she's talked to and from the young ladies that she's talked to whenever she's been talking to school age children and stuff like that. What are those things that hold people back, especially on the women's side of things? Because I agree with what Jen said. We can get so many more women involved in this, and there's such, like I said, 50% or about 50% of the population. So right now, a lot of them don't feel comfortable even making this an option on the construction side and getting into the trades. Let us know what's out there. I mean, there's people just like Nate and I who are very open to figuring those pieces out and how to make it work for everybody. We do it all the time anyways. So with the different crews that we work with, what's it going to take? What are you looking for? What can we do better? What can we do different? And that's like the one thing I think of for Jen with a question for you would be, for women on the mindset side, what are some of the things that we can help with on a mindset side with women to help them realize that the trades are an option so that they can be something that works for them? I mean, are there things there that you can think of from our side as business owners and as educators in this industry that could help bring them forward? So, and step past what might be holding them back.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think that hammers and flip flops is still too new right now. And, I'm a knowledge junkie. And so it's my learning ground right now. It's
Right.
I get the audience to ask the questions too and learn from them and figure it out as we go. It's a closed membership community by design, so I'm only opening the doors a few times a year. I want to make sure that our members have the best experience. When I built it, it was very intentional with a few different pieces, and one being the lives, and people join things for all different reasons. One being the community, and another piece is the all of the videos that I did when I did my home remodel. There's like 80 of them. Were all the videos that were written instructions. They were easy to add supply lists. One of my frustrations when I was, everything's figure outable, and people would say, why would somebody, maybe pay to belong to this when they can just go YouTube it? Well, because when I would go YouTube, whatever it was I was trying to do, I got real tired real quick of looking at 25 or 50 different videos, different men with different tools telling me different ways to do it. And I'm like, where's the girl? I've seen somebody that just says, listen, there are 50 other ways to do this, but here's the way that it'll work. Here's the supply list, add it to your cart, check out, and here's how you do it. But the other thing I built with this community that was really important to me is having a help button, because you can't ask YouTuber, I just ran into a problem. What do I do about this? Or,
Mhm.
what did you use for this? Right? They didn't give you all the details. And so our coaching center allows our members to access DIY lovers and, designers, and hire them for a half hour. Just say, hey, before I start this project, talk me through this. And that's all the other part of it, like the preparation. We all know that 50% of the success of an outcome of a project is having everything ready and having the plan before you go into it. A lot of people don't know that, right?
Right.
And so it's just creating that safe community, and then without mansplaining. And, I get it on social. I will be, doing some, I post some video, and I mean, it never fails. I'm like, what, don't you guys have anything better to do? They want to tell me that I should have done this, or I did this wrong, or why didn't I use that tool, or whatever.
Jen, I get the same thing, so it's not just you.
Right. It doesn't matter. It got the job done. It's kind of
Right.
like you said, Nate, it's good enough. And I think one of the things that I learned from my dad was, he's like, listen, anything can be fixed. Don't worry about screwing it up. And there's not one way to get it done. Some are a little easier. It's not uncommon, even for the pros, to have to do things 2 or 3 times sometimes to get it right.
Right.
You're not doing anything wrong.
Mhm.
And just if it works, it works. And
Yep.
learning that conversation in my head, when you talk about mindset,
Mhm.
that's what I needed to know.
Yeah.
And
I,
that's
I
what
I
I'm doing.
think that's huge then, and it is. That's great advice for no matter what industry you're in, but definitely in this one, because there's as much art as there is science when it comes down to construction. There's no question about it. And the science part of it is, you're right. I have 3 different tile people that I use. So each one of them likes to do their bathrooms in a different way as far as what they use for substrates. So what they use for waterproofing and things like that. None of them are wrong. All of them work. So as far as that goes, and that's the key piece is, I give them what they want to do the job in the manner that they know they're going to be confident in the result in the very end. So, and that's come from, years of me just being open to not having just one solution. And that's like whenever I get those social media comments that you're talking about, Jen. Yeah, I do that. I roll my eyes and I'm like, that's usually the first thing I'm like, I said, I love your option. I said, and there's many routes to the same finish. So it's usually how I finish out any of those comments, because that's it. And it's the easiest thing to go ahead and say, I'm not going to go back and forth with them. That's a key piece though for women is realize, and I think women realize that even a lot of times more than men do, so that there are multiple routes to get to that same end result. And for us as business owners to encourage that piece, and realize that, like you talked about before, Jen, is women may have a different idea whenever they come in, and the guys have been doing it the way the guys have been taught to do it forever, because that's what we've been taught to do, and that's how you do it, and there's no question that's because that's how you do it. That was what it comes down to. And and for women being able to go ahead and provide a different perspective, and that hey, what do you ever think about doing it this way? And for guys, that's what it comes down to in the building industry. For the men that are in this industry already, is being open all the time, whether it's from comments from another male in the industry or whether it's from a female coming into the industry that you're working with. Being open is always going to lead you to a better result overall. So, and to a higher level. So, of people you're working with, your business is going to grow better if you're the business owner. So, you're going to do better just being open like that. But yeah, there's the great thing about construction is you can screw it up and then you can redo it. So as long as you catch the screw up early enough that it
Early
doesn't
enough.
start trickling down. So, but yes, you get the opportunity to go ahead and fix it and that's the great thing, because you see it now. So it's not like something that a lot of times is going to have to take a long time to figure out you did it wrong. So you're going to
Right.
figure it out.
right? You just need to have that confidence to say, oh, hold on, I screwed that up. This is going to take another go around. And sometimes you're like, I can live with this, you know? And I always felt like that way about my own house. And that's what I coach these women about. I'm like,
Right.
listen, this is your own house. Nobody's paying you to do this.
Yeah.
So if it's not perfect, it's your practice ground. It's
Right.
okay, right?
It's the
And that
best place to have it because it doesn't, I mean, as long as you're good with it. So, and if you've got to go back and rework it, it doesn't matter. No one's judging you. Just go back and do what you want to do.
it doesn't matter. You know, I think the other piece of this that the mindset piece a little bit, but and this again, it's not just construction. We are lacking communication skills in our society as a whole, especially in the younger generations, because we actually need to have conversations with people.
I mean, they
And
can't text me their answers.
well, they'll try. And you know, you've got women that are already, I mean, I've witnessed this for 20 years in the legal field, that
Mhm.
they're scared to speak up. They're in female partners with male partners. I watch it over and over and over again. That female will not stand their ground and speak up and say what they think. And it kills me. It crushes me. And I think
How do you change that?
one of the reasons I was so successful, I think, was somewhere along the line in the corporate world and in managing. I was working with doctors and lawyers and, you know, lots of men and very, very
Lots of men
smart,
with very big egos. Yes.
very big egos, very intelligent. And
Mhm.
I loved it because I love working with smart people, and I like
Mhm.
people who make me think and challenge the way that I do. And so I never minded it. But I think part of it is understanding we're all human. It does not matter whether you are Michael Jordan or whether you have never played basketball in your life. Everybody struggles with the not enough, the it was this good enough, was this who am I, you know, the same feelings. We are
Right.
that is, it's just so, you know, how people present. I think if you just understand at the end of the day, we still all put our pants on the same way and we still have the same human functions and the same human feelings, it it tries to equalize it, but I think you also have to have a true north. And for me, um, when I started working in these spaces where it was challenging that I had multiple bosses, I had 12 partners and each one of them were signing my paycheck. So some of their egos were bigger than others. Some of them brought in more business than somebody else. So their voices should have been counted. Somebody was on a committee and somebody wasn't. And early on, I was 26 years old when I started managing my first law firm. There were, you know, I mean, 50 lawyer, you know, 50, I think people, it was a big firm and been a while. And I had no idea what I was doing. And early on, I was getting kind of pushed around, 26 years old, brand new, walking in, and you know, the lawyers are, you know, you should do this, you know, da da da. And I got myself in some hot water a couple of times because I had listened to one of them, and you know, somebody would be like, well, why'd you do that? Well, because he told me to. Well, he doesn't have it, you know, and I was like, oh, okay. I decided that I will always, always operate in the best interest of the company that I'm working for.
Mhm.
And then when I am on the witness stand and somebody says, why did you do what you did? I made the best decision in the interest of the company, not any one individual. Now, people
Mhm.
definitely play a part in that at some point. But
Mhm.
that's how I operate today too. So I think, however, whether that's your true north or something else, it needs to be neutral, not
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah.
This isn't personal, it's
Mhm.
business. What is
Right.
in the best interest of the homeowner, of the company, of, you know, where is that? And then when you, I think, can find that and you want to voice your opinion, it's grounded on something that is more neutral, that isn't an
Right.
emotion.
Isn't changing. Right.
Yeah. I
I
call it a
don't know.
lens. You know, it's the
Mhm.
lens in which you view.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and this is a struggle for both men and women, right? Is from,
Mhm.
you know, it's like the guys that you were talking about earlier that are putting in you know, constraints on women for working faster than them. And I'm saying, hey, wait, slow down. You're gonna make me look bad. He's not looking at it through the lens of what's best for the company. He's looking at it through the lens of what's best for him.
Yep.
and vice versa on the female side, right? They're like, well, I need to do X, Y, and Z, right? And how do I accomplish that? And it's more important than the company, right? So it's like, how do you train people to look through the lens of how do I put my goals and the company's goals in alignment? And you mentioned earlier the PPP, periods, pregnancy, and
Pumping.
pumping, and then those things are important because they're about childcare, right, or a part of the child life, right, especially in the early stages. But it's also just an ongoing conversation, like, okay, how do we make that align with the company goals? And so does that mean that we need to set it up, times that they can come in or go out, or time off? Is it a maternity leave component that, and I'm in favor for maternity leave because I think it's important both for male and female to spend time with a child at an early age, to have connection, because I think so many parents, including myself, have given up children too early, and now we're letting strangers be connected to parents. But that's my own personal thing. But I try to instill that in the company. But it has to be a view, a lens of like, how do I project my personal goals and align them with the company goals, and then make decisions based upon the company to kind of help move forward. Because ultimately, my goal is not to have employees. My goal is to have owner operators that I partner with, right? And so I think that's another big distinction, is like, some of these people, they just want employees. They want to tell them when to come in, when to work, how to work, all those things, but they never give them guidance into their own personal life, right? Or they don't give them education for them to be able to save money or prepare for a trip or any of those things, because they just see them as, you're my employee, you're going to work for me, and that's it. And I think that's part of the conversation that isn't being discussed amongst business owners, right? It's like, we all need employees, but how do you elevate an employee from nothing into a workable person, to a manager, to then a partner? And I think that conversation is being missed, because I think if they view things out of that lens, they might be having different conversations of like, how do we have that work-life balance that everybody seems to talk about, but nobody seems to find? So, anyways.
Well, I think there's one other piece that I skipped, I think super important when you talk about women in construction and in the trades. Again, referencing Gallup, it's super important that everybody has a best friend at work. And what you just hit on is an issue for women. We need to know that and people work for managers, not companies, right? They
Mhm.
leave managers, they don't leave companies. We as women need to know that our, at a minimum, manager cares. They care about my family, they care about me, they care about my feelings, and I'm not just the employee. And they can, if the manager doesn't care, but they have a best friend at work, they are more tolerant. And so I think you need, I mean, and I know that this is going to be hard until we get more women in the workplace, but companies are going to need to make their very, very, very best attempt to never put one female on a job site by herself. She needs another woman.
Mhm.
She needs a friend. And even if they're not best friends per se, there is a connection there of, I get it, right? Like whatever it is,
Yeah,
there's just that's
yeah,
the fact. And I think that's going to be
that's an
really
excellent
important.
point. That's an
That
excellent point.
needs to be thought of.
The ones, you know, I've never thought of that, and I thank you for bringing that point up, because I have had women working for me for that last decade, and there have been times where they've been the sole woman on the job. And looking back, just right now as you're laying this out, I can see where some of the extra stress that was happening in their life, just because they were on the job site, even though they knew the guys, there wasn't any kind of like anything else. It was just they were alone in that world. And that's an excellent point. because I've had others that team up and they come together and they work together, and sometimes they get along, sometimes they don't. But that is an excellent point. They need a support staff.
It's like whenever you were saying that, Jen, like what I was writing down as I was taking notes. So yes, I'm taking notes while you're talking. Thank you. I appreciate you. And the piece that I looked at with that was like with Paige. So I want to make more of an effort then for the crews that send out women onto the site to be able to do things. It's like I want to make sure that she's the one that's going and checking on those job sites and things like that more so than I do. So at this point,
Yeah.
just to go ahead and create a little bit of that, so and help build that because like I mean, like we said, there's not a whole lot of women out here yet. So getting them teamed up is going to take a lot more effort to go ahead and make that happen, especially in the beginning until you go ahead and get more and more people out here. And then it'll become easier, which is what I would love to have. And yeah, it's being aware of those things. And it might even come down to, Nate, one of the other things I would think of, and I don't know whether, do you have any female project managers, construction managers at this point or?
Yeah, I've got two. I've got
Yeah, okay.
two female project managers, and then I've got four assistants in the office that are supporting everybody. But um, it is a big. But my four in the office definitely gravitate to the two that are in the field more so than the guys, and they'll
Right.
support the guys and all that. But they always when they go out, they want to make sure that one of the other female project managers are the ones that are educating them, not the males, which I find that interesting. And the two female project managers that are in the field, they want education from the one of the oldest guys in the company because he's kind of like the dad grandpa that they feel comfortable. And I'm perfectly happy with that because I don't want anybody feeling uncomfortable and giving and kind of going through that. So it's interesting to have this conversation and to dive into it to be able to understand some of the things that I just don't get. But I'm starting to understand through this conversation. It's like, okay, there's some internal things that I bypassed by not knowing or feeling it myself that I now recognize that okay, that's the reason why they because some of the girls in the office and some of the girls in the field, they don't really get along, but they like, all right, let's put our things aside to make this thing work. And that makes 100% understand.
So now I was even thinking on that side. I mean, like one of the things that I'm going to do is on my, because with Alice working from the house, so and taking care of a lot of the back end stuff for us. So having her go out even into the field too at times, just to go see Paige on project sites so that she's got a little bit of that support out there. And I know I've got multiple business partners that have women working in various roles, but even making sure that she gets the opportunity to go and talk to some of the salespeople and the owners of companies that are out there, and because the natural thing for most of them is to call me because they've been working with me for well over a decade now. So I'm the first phone call, and getting her to be that point person to be, especially to be able to deal with them, will probably support the business partner as much as it supports Paige. So where they get the chance to actually interact with more females. So and just have a little bit more camaraderie. Well, and that whole piece right there, I think is helpful overall for looking for ways for anyone who's in this industry. And if you've got a business in this, is to go ahead and work or look for ways to go ahead and put those pieces together like that to be able to go ahead and create more of that. So, and more of that connection. Cause that's literally what it comes down to is connection.
It's
So,
connection. And women that also same advice for business owners in this industry. When you do bring women in, men again comes down to this communication piece. You process your feelings differently. And so, guys can like disagree about something and, move on very quickly, like whatever, fine, and there can be some harsh words that are said. There can be, I mean,
Fist thrown, we've seen it
there
all.
could be threats. Yes, exactly. So,
but then it's over, right?
Yeah.
It's over and you act like nothing happened. That's not how
Right.
women operate.
Right.
And so but women need to know that if a guy says something like that on a job site, however, they're expressing their unhappiness with whatever was going on,
Mhm.
especially if it's directly involving her, is she needs to know that this is not another female where now this is gonna like be a thing. This was just a
Right.
moment and move
Right.
on.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
a good point.
education on both sides of how they need to be working.
Right. So love that. So Nate, any other questions for Jen while we have her?
I'm I'm so impressed. And I think you're doing a phenomenal job. You tapped into a market that is absolutely needed. You're doing a great job with cultivating it. Um, I'm thoroughly impressed. I want to see how this grows. I'd like to figure out how we're all going to be able to work together because I think that there's a lot of symmetry here that can help drive this industry. Um, there is a big gap with mothers that need to, encourage their kids to be able to pick up tools and do things, and then do it for themselves so they feel comfortable and happy in their own home. And I'm just impressed, and I'm thankful for the time today. Um, yeah, I'm happy. So
Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you. Well, likewise, this is a massive, massive problem. Like just,
yeah,
it's not going to be one person or any, two or three that fix it. It's going to take the whole country working together
That's exactly
to
it.
get it done.
it's kind of
And
like
that's
what you said before, where you said you had this conversation that you kept, um, not right now. We'll get back to you. I've got other things. Uh, I've had that same conversation. It's been really loud. It keeps getting louder. And it's like, all right, we got to bring these people back to the center to be able to kind of like have them do the function and the need. And I've got a big goal and dream, and Keith's come along with me on this. And I think the more people that we can kind of get involved and talk about it, that's where we start to make change. And so I'm extremely encouraged.
I only have one thing to say, Jen, and I've got to go ahead and make the comments because the company is named after that for you. So Hammers and Flip Flops, if they make that transition from being Hammers and Flip Flops into actually getting into the industry, they're gonna have to get OSHA compliant and put boots with steel toe tips on. So is what they're gonna have to do.
Only if they don't work for themselves, Keith.
No. If they're on a job site, their insurance company will make sure they've got
Okay,
to.
you're right. You're right. You're right. Do it
Yeah.
on do it on your own, do it on your own home,
But
right?
if you do it on your own home, do it however you want. So, but no, I love that piece. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you being here. Love your mission. You know that we've had those conversations for years now. Support that in every way we possibly can. For everyone who's listening, so make sure to hop into the show notes at the end. So Jen will have contact information for Jen for any of the women who want to get involved in Hammers and Flip Flops the next time she opens it up. Then you'll be able to go ahead and get involved with that. I think it's an awesome piece. I look forward to seeing how you grow it. So what it turns into, definitely ways to work together in the future. It's going to be exciting, and the more women that we can get in this industry, to me, it's better. I've always worked better
Absolutely.
with women in the companies that I've worked with. So I would love to have more of them. I mean, my company is female dominated, on that side of things, and I'm good with that. So it works really well. So especially for me, so the more women we can get in, the better this will be. It gives people opportunities. So and just expands the options that are out there. So and that's what I love to see is that ability to go ahead and do that. Thanks for being here, Jen.
Oh,
Really
thank you
appreciate it.
guys both. Such a fun conversation. Great, great Saturday morning. Thank you both.